Yo, goons, what's good? So, my voice is a bit hoarse in this video because I just got back from Frosty. But today we're going to be making a Goldlewis guide. It's comprehensive for beginners all the way up to pretty much the limit of my own knowledge. Hope I didn't leave anything out. Anyway, timestamps in the description. I hope everybody enjoys it. Goodbye. So, you should be able to see that I've turned on like my overhead, view on my camera so you can see my inputs here, and hopefully that'll help anyone watching follow along. I also have the input history on as well, so maybe you can see the timing in case you're trying to figure out how I'm doing certain things, because it can be a little tricky learning Goldlewis at first. But I wanted to go over a quick character overview of how exactly Goldlewis works and what he's looking for and what type of character he is if you're trying to decide whether or not to play him. First off, I highly recommend anyone, no bias obviously, anyone tries out Goldlewis, because he actually has an insane amount of tech, a lot of possible character expression as a result of that, and is quite misunderstood by a lot of other players as being kind of mindless and thinking that all Goldlewises can do the same thing and win without really putting in much effort. But in reality, this character is super cool, super awesome, and tons of layers to him. So his main game plan is really just to get in and just crush you with very non-interactive offense, like extremely highly stacked risk reward in his favor once he's in. Many situations where he's over +10 when most other characters are lucky to have, even a few plus frames in their pressure. Not only that, but what's premier to Goldlewis is, of course, Guard Crush. His main special, Behemoth Typhoon. This is like how Goldlewis works. We'll get into it in a little bit. All of them put you in this state called Guard Crush, which is where you see the opponent blocking, but they kind of like lose their balance a little bit. There's usually some kind of animation like that. Anyway, that makes it so that you basically cannot buffer moves during Guard Crush coming out of it, including DPs and whatnot. And also, normally when you hit an opponent, they have 5 frames of immunity to being thrown, but after Guard Crush, those 5 frames are gone. Those are like the main differences between moves that don't Guard Crush and moves that do. In addition, of course, these Behemoth Typhoons, they also do a lot of chip damage. So what you get is a character that gets in and stays super plus and can kind of threaten looping these BTs into one another and racking up the chip damage and really forcing the opponent to either drain their meter using FD or to try to contest the pressure somehow, which is extremely risky because Goldlewis is a very high damage character and gets amazing conversions and bombos off of counter hits in his pressure. So he's fundamentally a character that can force really strong RPS, which is something that people talk about in this game. Basically, it's more or less the state of putting the opponent into a guessing game, and if we say something is strong RPS, it means that it's favored for us. And in Goldlewis's case, it's highly favored for us. If the opponent is guessing and we're basically guessing as well, like if we're extending pressure, this kind of thing, and they're deciding whether or not to mash or to backdash or whatever, if we're both taking equal guesses, we're way more favored because our options have way higher reward than theirs in those cases. So yeah, Goldlewis is fundamentally like a big body character who is a little bit stubby on defense. He tends to get oppressed pretty hard because of his big hitbox and kind of, a Bare that's either slow or suffers from hurtbox issues. But once he's in, has absolutely devastating, very one-sided offense. So that's kind of an overview of Goldlewis. That being said, let's talk a little bit more about the specifics. Let's first talk about the normals of Goldlewis. So every character, all of their buttons have a purpose, but I think for Goldlewis in particular, literally every single one of his buttons has a purpose, including his air button. So let's just go through them one by one. I'll mention them and give a little bit of an intro as to where to use them and whatnot. First off, 5P. This is your, nice little quick anti-air jab button. It's plus on block, but many opponents will low profile this, and it's also not disjointed, so you have to be careful anti-airing with this. It's mostly like a preemptive anti-air, or if it's really telegraphed. Pretty useful button. 2P. Now this is an extremely useful button and actually a much better anti-air than 5P. So 2P is a 5 frame, that's your mash option. It's disjointed on the elbow, so that makes it a great anti-air. Goldlewis gets good conversions off of it. And overall, it's just a really core button to his game plan. It's also +3. So sometimes you can do, 2P into 2K. And, that's only a 5 frame gap. That can be pretty good. Low as well in there. Anyway, 2P is just an essential button. This is your go-to mashing option if you want to check the opponent. If you want to throw out something that's low committal and neutral as well, if the opponent's running around Sometimes that's useful. Good anti-air. This button really does it all. The only real weakness is that it gets low profiled, so you do have to be careful on defense using this against certain characters in certain spots. Moving on to the K buttons. 5K. 10 frames startup, but 9 active frames. Low, that is also extremely disjointed. So the purpose of this move is to call out lows because it will basically low crush like any low that doesn't get to the very back of Goldlewis's other leg. And that hurtbox shift, from this disjoint actually comes out frame 1. So even if an opponent is like right on top of you and they use a much faster option, as long as their option wouldn't reach to Goldlewis's other legs, your 5K is going to win it. It's actually really, really nice. And there's some kind of advanced situations where you can use that for that sort of thing if you're really aware. 5K can also be used to start pressure because you can actually dash cancel it. And of course, a fundamental part of Goldlewis's game plan is car canceling. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but 5K is really important for continuing pressure. It's also notably longer range than close slash, which is our other dash cancelable button. 2K. So this is our alternative to 2P rather for mashing. And that's because it reaches lower. It's still pretty low recovery and it also has a bit more range, but it is 8 frames. And 8 frame startup for a mashing option is pretty rough, but it's still important. And this thing is also nice sometimes for going under 6Ps and also again for calling out people running in while also remaining relatively low commitment. Right, so S buttons. Let's talk about far slash first. So this baby is an amazing button in neutral. Forward advancing, 10 frames, slightly disjointed on the fist, normal. Of course, very good for getting pressure started. All of these normals, in theory, you can initiate your BT pressure, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Far slash you really just use for poking and just for harassing people in neutral. And this kind of thing, it's really, really, really good. The frame data is great on this move for the range and whatnot. It's at round start distance, but again, the weakness of this move is it can be low profile. And of course 6 speed. And sometimes jumped over, but it actually hits at a pretty good height. So anyway, close slash, man, beautiful, beautiful button. This is a massive little shoulder tackle that actually has a pretty big vertical hitbox, so you can use this to anti-air as well. It is plus on block, and it's like your fundamental pressure starter, frame trap starter, pressure extender, that kind of thing. It's just all around an amazing button, and what you're going to be using, a ton of the time. Unlike 2S. 2S is trash. This is a 13 frame mid. It's not even a low. That is disjointed, but it's actually not disjointed on Goldlewis's like right fist. So in other words, it's disjointed like on the coffin part of it. It will hit lows, but like any move that hits slightly above being directly on the ground will basically stuff this move. And it has 13 frame startup. I would generally recommend staying away from this. It's useful in very niche scenarios. For example, against Axel, sometimes you can low profile his 5P by using this. Now, if you really want to call out the opponent mashing low in the corner and you're out of range of 5K, sometimes you can use this. I've seen it used there as well, but generally you want to stay away from using this button. H button. So we have 5H. This is basically just combo filler, 2H as well. You really don't want to be using these on their own, but they're both, very important for actually performing Goldlewis's routes. Obviously 2H, this is like your launcher. And 5H, if they're already launched, of course, you can use that to extend combos. It basically causes a ground bounce on air hit. So it's really nice, But those moves, you don't really want to be using them on their own or in pressure. Generally, if you get those, it's a misinput for Behemoth Typhoon, and you're really sad. But nonetheless, they're still useful and important because, again, Goldlewis uses all of his buttons. 6H. Long range, huge disjointed poke. Very, very, very slow. But you can use this in order to get some really, really big bombos, especially in the corner, because, of course, you can gattle out of this. You can get some really, really sick stuff off of this. Counter hit 6H starter is my absolute favorite thing in the entire game. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Goldlewis's air buttons now. JP. So this is really good as like a quick air-to-air. If the opponent's jumping in and maybe you don't want to 5P or you want to get in the air or you're airborne and the opponent jumps in, it's a really nice button to react to. It's to react with rather. It's really, really good. This button is great, and I think it's underused by a lot of Goldlewis's just as a quick air check. Now, JK. So This button might seem kind of weird at first, but its main use is as a cross-up tool or to maintain pressure once you're in the opponent's face. Because, as we'll see in a minute, Goldlewis has the best aerial in the entire game, but you don't want to be using it super up close. Your up-close aerials for using pressure are going to be JK. If you land these low, thanks to Goldlewis's low jump arc, you can be plus a lot of the time. You know, you can get confirms if you're low enough. You do need to be quite low for that, though. Like that. In any case, JK is really, really useful for up-close pressure. And it's also used for another purpose we'll go over later, which is the fuzzy overhead, but I'm not going to talk about that quite yet. JS. Talk about air-to-airs. This is like one of the beefiest air-to-airs in the game. It is so active. It's also very disjointed. They buff this move. It's fast. If the opponent blocks it, you know, you can air dash in. And you're going to be super plus. It's just overall a really great button. Really strong air-to-air. And your premier like long-range air-to-air button. And to even call out jumps, you can use this because it's so active. JH. So this is kind of an alternative to JK. It's also a really good cross-up button. It's also really good to maintain pressure up close. And you can also even use it in pressure as well, like I am doing here. You know, it's really good. You can use it for up-close pressure just like JK. The main difference between them, this is kind of a better cross-up button most of the time, because like if I do just instant rising JK like that, it's not going to cross up. JH, it can do that, you know, and that's really nice. And it's also going to be more plus if you hit it closer to the ground than JK a lot of the time, but it is significantly slower startup, so you need to keep that in mind. You know, there are trade-offs to using these buttons. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention his Ds. 5D, you have no reason to use it. Your overhead BTs are better. Just ignore it. It's for memes. But 2D, this is a sweep. Pretty good range. Pretty good low profile. Not even too bad to throw out in neutral, or if you're sniping the opponent in the corner. With this, you can low profile sometimes, or knock down the opponent, catch them trying to jump, etc. It's really solid, but the most important D button is of the jumping variety, JD. This thing is broken as hell. This is actually the best aerial in the game, bar none. It is absolutely disgusting. Super high attack level 2. So in other words, you have a lot of frame advantage if you land this low to the ground. Not only that, but you can do like an air BT low to the ground and you can stay plus. Usually this is around +4. Do not make it a habit to do this though. Do not make it a habit to like land a JD high and come down with a BT every time. You know, only do this if you're in the right scenario to do it. Like if you have the opponent in the corner, you'll land a ways away from them, you're plus, they're not going to have time to throw out anything to contest that BT, except for super or a ATP or you know, that kind of thing. No, it's also very plus so that if the opponent isn't mashing 6B, you can get away with this kind of thing. This frame traps, by the way, that like whole string is a frame trap, and if any of them counter hit, you get quite a bit of reward. Yeah. But yeah, JD is so good for initiating pressure, for going over pokes, all kinds of things. The only time it's a little weak is up close. It has a dead zone directly below it. So for those situations, use JH and JK. It's generally going to be better to use those. And if you ever land an aerial a little too high, with JK it's a little hard just because the cancel window is small. But just make sure to cancel into a BT and keep yourself a little plus when you land. Alternatively, if you land these low to the ground, you know, like that's going to be a true stream because JD is just so active. So yeah, really great buttons that I forgot to mention. Alright goons, this is a comprehensive guide, but it's going to be really long if I don't move it right along here. So I'm just going to go through every Behemoth Typhoon, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what each of them do. So the way you input a Behemoth Typhoon is a semicircle and then H at the end, and they all have different properties. So I'm going to be referring to them each by their numpad notation, which is their input. So 2 is down, 3 is down right, etc. So we have like 268, 486, 862, etc. But all of them have to be full semicircles, or at least at most you can only skip one input when you're inputting these. You can't skip more than one. So even though I say 862, it's not literally 8 and then 6 and then 2. It's a semicircle, up, forward, down. That's what it is. And then H at the end. So let's talk about each of them. 268. Very plus 3 to plus 14-ish, depending on how late into the hitbox this connects. It's your media option a lot of the time. It's how you get pressure started. It's how you extend pressure. It's just a really solid button. It hits very high as well and launches on hit. You can get some combos going. It's really nice. 684, this is going to be a poke. It's going to be your combo ender. It leaves the opponent right in front of you, although it is -5. It's when your pressure ends. 486, slow overhead. It's on frame 28, but does net you quite a bit of damage on hit. And is extremely, extremely plus. It's a pressure resetting BT, +14 to +16. You can threaten it from long ranges with that disjoint. All BTs are very disjointed, but it is committal. The opponent can react to this and do stuff about it, but it's really, really good because Goldlewis has so much mental stack and conditioning. 426, this is going to be your alternative to 486. It wall bounces on hit, really, really good. Very, very fundamentally important for combo filler. I'll go into some basic combos in a minute here. Anyway, you mainly use this to snipe people in the corner and hit them with a fat disjoint. If they try to contest, they'll get blown up by this. And it's really, really great. And you can get some really fun combos with this thing. It's just a lot of fun. Then we have the highs and the lows. 862, the faster highs and the lows. I guess 486 is also high. Anyway, 862, this is going to be like a 21 frame overhead effectively. And it leaves Goldlewis at +12. It doesn't give him anything on hit unless you RC. Unlike 842, which although slower, does give Goldlewis a little bit of a mini combo. And in fact, in the corner, you can get a full wall break. And in fact, in the corner, you can get a full wall break off this on hit, which is great. A lot of damage, by the way. That's a low, and it's +16 on block. So +16 on block low, that gives you a full combo and tons of damage in the corner. Yeah, really, really, really good. Many of these have weaknesses, though. I made a counterplay guide. If you want to get a better understanding of Goldlewis's weaknesses and the options the opponent has, I highly recommend checking that out because it is relatively still up to date. Anyway, moving on. We also have another low, 248. This is side switching, and it hits the opponent on frame 12. So this is unreactable. The trade-off is it's only +3, and it pushes Goldlewis quite far out if the opponent FDs it. Yeah, but this is really good because you basically threaten this left-right in the corner that side switches either way. So if you ever, mash out in the corner, you can threaten run up 248, and that will side switch, or you can threaten, run up JH cross up, and that will also side switch. So that's the main way it's used for. Also, close slash Kara 248. Even against FD, this will hit, and it is gapless. So you can also use this to call out BTs, or DPs rather, and like reversal mashes and that kind of thing. Because a lot of the time the opponent will let go down back and they'll get hit by lows doing that. Which is another reason why close slash 2D will work out as well. We also have 624. It's an alternative to 684. I wouldn't really recommend using it. And, the trade-off is it has more corner carry, but you get worse Oki, and it also has a worse hitbox, if you ask me. Both of them are -5, though, same frame data. So that covers all the BTs and, the basic idea of how you want to be using them. We also have the specials. So we have the drone, and we have the GAT. So Goldlewis has this gauge that builds passively. You cannot change how fast it builds above his tension bar. Once it's full, he has access to these two specials that are both actually projectiles and both give hard knockdown on hit. The gun travels instantly, and it will beat pretty much all other projectiles. This thing will beat literally all other projectiles that are not supers. It's crazy, crazy good. Anyway. The drone is really nice for taking space, and also it rewards patient play, so you don't have to flail about in neutral with your kind of stubby buttons. But it will go away if you get hit or YRC'd, so just keep that in mind. You mainly use drone to take space, and you can also use it to set up mix-ups like this kind of thing, which we'll get into in a little bit. Now to talk about the supers for a second, you've got the beam. The beam will bring the opponent to you, more or less guaranteed. They have to block this, and on hit, you get quite a bit of reward, right? So this is really nice for anti-zoning. And of course, the drone and the beam and the gun, they all depend on Goldlewis's security level. So you really only want to be doing drone and gun at full security, if you ask me. You can use the gun to snipe out, people doing shit full screen for whatever reason, throwing out projectiles. You time it well, you get your hard knockdown. But it also does a ton of chip damage and costs a lot of meter to FD, as you can see over there. So you can use it to checkmate people as well for that reason. But yeah, level 2 gun and level 2 drone, they only soft knockdown, and they don't last nearly as long as their full security versions. So I wouldn't recommend using them too often outside of niche scenarios. You can still use them in mix-ups, the drone that is. And level 0, like below half, you never ever want to use that. It's trash. Sometimes you can like force the opponent to try to jump in kind of by mashing this, and then if they jump in, if they're going to get chipped out, you just RC and then 6P or air grab or whatever. Anyway, his cash out super is done with the system. And the amount of damage and startup and therefore iframes this has depends on the number of full circle churns that you do. So, keep that in mind. This is what the fully churned version looks like. Depending on your controller, it may or may not be easier than what I have to do to churn, but you can actually also use this for iframes. So you can PRC the startup and tank a hit with the invulnerability and then get a throw or something like that. It's very solid for that purpose. I wish I could do it better, but on Mixbox, you have limited options. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so for absolute beginners and you really want to understand like, hey, how do I pressure with Goldlewis? I don't know what I'm doing. I'll talk a little bit about that, but you should know there's like no wrong answers because its pressure is so good, especially when you're playing at a level where other people are very new. But if you're new, I would really recommend to sticking to close slash 268, and then you can run up into K2D and that kind of thing. And if you're still in range, you can 268 again if you don't think they're gonna backdash. You can 684. And also something else that's really good for beginners and that's kind of easy to input is close slash 486. But generally when you're new to Goldlewis, doing your raw behemoth typhoons, you're gonna be struggling. So oftentimes meeting with close slash and then gatling using the end lag of other BTs, that's going to be a lot easier than trying to do them raw for you. So, once you're a little bit more advanced, you can start implementing raw 486s and raw 684s. But generally, in neutral, while you're new, you're going to want to be using far slash 624 as your main pokes rather than like raw 684s, which is something that takes some time getting used to. It's really just a speed thing. Like to do raw 486 and 684, I promise if you're new to Goldlewis, you will struggle with this and it will seem really hard at first. But it's all speed. It's all speed and timing, and every controller, regardless of what you're using, as long as it's not something super unorthodox, you can do this consistently. The only one I would say you want to avoid, especially as a beginner trying to do raw consistently, is the ones that start with up, like a 862 and 842. That's because Goldlewis has 5-frame jump squat, so you only have like 4 frames or less to input that, and it's basically impossible. Like only absolute god Goldlewis's who put a ton of time into it can do this, and it also depends on the controller. Like I don't even think it's really feasible at all with Xbox. I can't do it. But yeah, really you can kind of just go ham when you're new with Goldlewis, and you have so many plus frames. You're gonna get a feel for where your frame chaps are, for how plus you are, in a lot of places. That's your main goal, and understanding how each of the BTs I used before. That's also a big thing here. Going for this sort of thing, it's good. I would stray away from trying to just copy paste block strings though, because that's not really how a game like Strive works. But if you're completely brand new, you're gonna be my god, I keep misspeaking when I say that. You're gonna wanna be doing this sort of thing. Yeah, but if the opponent is FDing, just note that Goldlewis's pressure gets a lot weaker and it's harder to safely extend it. I'll just show that. So like no longer can we just do 2K 2D here. There's counterplay to that. We could do our slower BT, then maybe we can frame trap there, or we can just call out the opponent being scared and just run up and close slash again, just loop this kind of thing, or we can far slash, call out the fact that they're not going to backdash or they're going to try to mash at the wrong time, etc. Because Goldlewis is so plus, it's hard for you to choose a wrong answer here. But yeah, that's like the real core of very basic Goldlewis pressure. So I'll also go over some basic combos here as well. So pretty much anytime you're not landing a close slash, you're going to be hit confirming into 684. So for example, 2K 2D, or just 2K, or 2P. Now all of those are going to give you a chance to get in there with Oki, and also you can't really get a better combo a lot of the time here. Maybe sometimes you can find a 268 on counter hit, but it's not going to be nearly as feasible with these buttons most of the time. However, if you land a close slash, the B&B is close slash 2H486, and then you can do 5K684 if you want them to stay close. But what's better a lot of the time, in my opinion, is going to be 5K268. Get some more corner carry and also keep good Oki. And like we said before, meaty with 268. Now, quick note, when you're meatying with 268, you don't want to time it so you hit like immediately with the 268. Otherwise, you'll only be +3. You want to time it so it hits like a little bit late into the hitbox, but this can be hard. to like cash out and be as plus as you can. Like that's a good example of it being very plus there. I'm happy with that one. But you don't want it to hit as early as possible because then you're only +3, and then run up close slash is, you know, a little bit more risky. So yeah, just bear in mind that takes some manual timing and getting used to. But yeah, in the corner, Goldlewis's main route is going to be close slash 2H 426, close slash 248, and then close slash 268 or 684 to wall splat. Then you can super or whatever. Now that's really his filler. The fundamental combo in the corner: close slash 2H 426, close slash 248, close slash 268. This is an absolute classic right here, and it's gonna be one of the, oh my god, I cannot speak when I say the word gonna for some reason. It's gonna be one of the first things that you should look at learning for extending. Now let's also go over the basic RC combos. When you're hit confirming your 684s, you PRC in and you do 248, because 248 will pop the opponent up a little bit extra and allow you to get a close slash 2H 486, and there you have it. You know, you can even keep the opponent close to you if you time it right. That kind of thing. Now, he gets some very, very good conversions with meter, and these are really just the basics. You know, that you can get way, way more advanced with conversions, or you can fast RC to try to keep some meter and also still get a ton of corner carry and damage, that kind of thing. Now, this is all, I'm talking about very low level stuff here. If you're brand new to Goldlewis and you're trying to figure out what to do. You don't get conversions off every BT though, keep that in mind. Like on hit, 684 obviously just gives you the knockdown, 624 as well. Mid screen, many of these don't give you anything. If you do land a mid screen raw 268, I like to just go straight into 684 for better Oki. You can also do 2S 684 for a bit more damage though. So yeah, keep that in mind. And of course, landing 842, I like 5k. And of course 268 for that corner carry. If you can end with 268, it's generally better than 684. And I'll show again in the corner the wall breaking route for 842. Now something really, really basic like that will net you a lot of damage. But a lot of the time it's going to be better to keep the corner with Goldlewis. I'll just point that out. So yeah, that covers like the really basic combos with Goldlewis. Generally, if you're going to be extending, it's like either going to be that and you're going to not wall break, or it's going to be something like this and you are going to wall break. Now note that if the opponent had been comboed before you land a 426, like if you didn't just basically get this exact starter, catching with close slash 248 is not going to be feasible a lot of the time. So you're going to want to catch with 5k, and then if you knew, I would just say 5k 624 works just fine, just like this, and then you can 6H to catch the wall break there. There are a few other ways you can do it. You know, there are more optimal ways to do it, but if you're new, focus on that. So yeah, hopefully that gives you some basics. The main idea here is that anytime the opponent has some room to be popped up higher, you're going to be using 248 in order to get that, and then you're going to be going into close slash 2H 486 or close slash 2H 426 if you want a wall break or get that wall bounce, etc. Those are like the main concepts when it comes to comboing with Goldlewis. So yeah, those are the basics when it comes to combo game and block string game a little bit, I guess, even though again block string's not really a valid concept in Guilty Gear. Let's also show some counter hit combos. So in your pressure, the opponent is probably going to get counter hit a lot, and Goldlewis gets some massive bombos off counter hit. And there are actually a lot of different routes here, but I'm going to show the very basics, okay? Because you can get very saucy and very optimal with Goldlewis, and I'm actually a huge fan of that kind of thing. Definitely check out twitch.tv/bedlesssleeper. OCE, Australian Goldlewis player that is just amazing with the sauce. You know, I'm goated with the sauce. Anywho, let's show some basic combos. So the concepts are really going to remain the same. If the opponent is above you, you want to be extending it with close slash 248 and then close slash 2H 486. And you get such high reward. And again, in the corner, you know, you can go for your wall bounces. And yeah, the reward is just stupid. And of course, you get your churn super in there. And yeah, the opponent really just dies. Generally, when you're new, you really want to be keeping your combos simple, though. Just stick to that structure that I mentioned before, okay? You don't even need a car cancel, which we'll get to in a little bit. And you don't even need to do that dash super that I just did either. You can just go straight for the super. But there is a sweet spot for Goldlewis's super if you're close enough. But yeah, the general structure is going to be the same. One thing I want to say is that make sure you're trying not to do the same BT twice in one combo, right? That will kind of ruin the proration, and that's also why we can't just loop close slash 248 into close slash 248. You know, it's generally not as good as going for something else. You know, like that. But yeah, I mean, these are all just going to be repeats of before. Now, 862, though, I will say, this will get counter hit a lot. You can't get a combo normally off of this, but on a counter hit you can. And it's pretty good. Including in the corner, you can actually get a decent amount off of this, which is way more than off of just a normal hit. And the reason you get a counter hit on 862 pretty often is because from close slash it will frame trap, like close slash 862, and you condition people to mash there by doing close slash, you know, 486 or close slash 426 or whatever. Your slower BTs, they'll often get counter hit there. Generally, on counter hit, you're just gonna have a lot more time to you know, confirm your combos. So yeah, it's really great. You also can get counter hits on your, you know, little mini normals. Just bear in mind though, this is really important. A really important confirm counter hit 2P into far slash or close slash. This works, but you have to be fast. And this is really important because you'll be mashing a lot of the time and you'll catch the opponent pushing something and you'll get a counter hit. And you actually had time to go into a far slash there, just like that. If you land a counter hit far slash though, yeah, 486 is the way to go, I would say. This is pretty much always going to work. Right, you won't always have time to run up and do whatever you want afterward, but, you know, many times you will. By the way, if the opponent's low enough and they're far enough, you can wall break with guns sometimes, but it's irrelevant. And same with 248. Usually you don't really get anything off 248 on hit, but if you land it mid-screen, you can get a lot more. And same kind of structure as before. Close slash 2H486 if we haven't used 486 in the combo. Or, you know, try to do a 248 if we haven't used 248 in the combo. And that's not always going to be possible. Like here, obviously, I can't run up and get a 248. But if I'm close enough, maybe I can. That's a card cancel. We'll talk about that in a minute here. But yeah, hopefully this all just gives you a little bit of an idea of how to combo on counter hit with Goldlewis. 2D will also net you counters pretty often because 2K 2D is a frame trap. So you can do this kind of thing. That's really solid. But yeah, you know, that should give you all the basics you need for comboing with Goldlewis. There's a lot of room for creativity and optimization here. So bear in mind that things can get really cool. I'll show you an example real quick. I love that combo. It's a lot trickier than the other combos I showed in the corner, and it's not that much more optimal, but if the opponent has guts, it is going to be it's going to be better. But you can just show there's some sauce that you can do with Goldlewis. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do. That's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Comboing with Goldlewis is one of my favorite things. There's so much sauce that you can do. There's a ton of saucy stuff you can do. Check out my other videos for more tech guides, but I just wanted to show that you can get really cool with Goldlewis. That's another reason I love him. His combo game is super awesome. So here's some super basic mix-ups with Goldlewis. Poke with your 624, and then you RC in and you go for the high-low. So because the opponent is guard crushed, and because of the frame data here, the opponent has to hold this. And also because you're dash RCing, you can't jump. So the whole issue with doing the raw 862 and 842 is not apparent when you're RCing. This is like a very basic mix-up. And to get a little more advanced, you can do like fast RC versions of it. This will save you meter, and of course, it's also way harder to react to. And we already went over what you get on hit, right? 862, you don't get anything. 842, you get a little mini combo. So keep that all in mind. Another basic mix-up that you can do is a fuzzy overhead. Looks like this. So basically, you hit the opponent with 862, and then you RC forward. It has to be a PRC, though, not a red RC. Keep that in mind. And then you can go for this instant overhead JK. And the opponent had to block 862 standing, right? So if they're down backing here, they will get hit by this JK. And that gets people all the time. And also, it's kind of an option to select because if they just got hit by the 862 and you PRC, you still have plenty of time to confirm off of it and react. So yeah, that's also quite a nice mix-up. Now in the corner, if the opponent gets grabbed or knocked down, you can put the drone down, jump forward, hold back while you're jumping forward, and then you input the high-low 862 or 842. It's also a nice, really basic mix-up. You hold back while you're jumping in to avoid bursts and reversals, because if done properly, this is reversal and burst safe. So keep that in mind. I mean, not always. It does depend on the reversal, I guess I should say. But in general, that's what you want to be doing, is holding back just to avoid burst and reversals. The opponent can't really mash here because the drone's going to be meeting them. They can't jump here. But you really want to be going for this only when you have full security drone. So keep that in mind. There's also another really disgusting sort of mix-up you can do in the corner. Whereas instead of just putting the drone down and then jumping in, you can actually OTG with 2K. And using the recovery of 2K, you do a slight delay, because you still can't jump during recovery. You do a slight delay, 862 or 842. And you can actually meaty with this and hit the opponent as they're waking up if they try mashing. And it's sort of like a high-low mix-up. They can backdash both options, and if you don't time it right, you can get mashed on or thrown as well. Not only that, but also it's very much not reversal safe, obviously. So yeah, keep that in mind. Now you can also do the fuzzy overhead off of 486. This one, because of course it's also an overhead. And yeah, that's going to be your basic fuzzy mix-up. You can also go low if you're new, 2K, 2D, or run up 248. If you're more advanced, you can do something we'll talk about later. You can also just reset straight into 486 because this is so plus. You can do 486 into 268, this kind of thing. It puts a lot of pressure on the opponent, and it's really, really scary. Just note that this isn't actually a true block string a lot of the time. Like, the opponent has just a little bit of time to do something here, but it's still a really good pressure reset, and it is a frame trap, so I'll bear that in mind as well. Now, speaking of basic mix-ups, Goldlewis also has a great throw game because of guard crush. The opponent has no throw-in vuln, and he's super plus, so you can catch any and all mashing pretty much just by doing a run-up throw on your guard crush frames. You want to make sure you're only doing it when you're pretty plus, though. You don't want to be doing it when you're not plus at all. Like, here is really good. If the Kai try to mash anything, including DPs, you'll be grabbing that. So it's really, really great. How to safe jump, though, you can do JH, you can do JD, but you do have to manually time most of Goldlewis's safe jumps, and they're also kind of distance dependent. Yeah, you can also cross up with safe jumps, though. Like, that can be a safe jump and that kind of thing. You basically just super jump either forward or neutral. You can make it a little bit ambiguous what side you're going to go on, like this. It's really, really good. You don't always have to super jump, though. Just keep that in mind. That just kind of depends on distance. And again, there is a manual timing element here, so it's actually pretty hard to perfectly safe jump with Goldlewis a lot of the time, but I wanted to throw it in there. So yeah, that covers some really, really basic stuff with Goldlewis. Let's move on to some more conceptual things. Okay, goons, quick little side note here. From now on in this video, I'm going to be car canceling all of my BTs in the future. And basically what car canceling is, or dash canceling, is when you use this dash cancel mechanic, which is when you press a close slash or 5K and then dash, you start running at the opponent. And then you do a special just in like the initial frames of that dash. And that allows you to go a lot further with Goldlewis and hit things that you wouldn't normally be able to hit. I actually have a full video dedicated on that. I would highly, highly recommend you watch it if you're trying to develop your Goldlewis, but it is essential, right? Because we're going to be moving on to more advanced things now. If you're a beginner, I would say try to stick with everything else I've mentioned. So let's talk a bit about advanced concepts like neutral and conditioning and whatnot, right? If you're playing Goldlewis, I can't stress this enough. It's really, really easy for you to become complacent with your offense. And a big part of getting better with Goldlewis is intentionally conditioning the opponent and changing things up. You know, a lot of the time you can condition the overhead, you can condition the backdash, you can condition a mash. Anytime you condition an opponent to do something in any spot, you have an option to cover it. For example, if I've conditioned Kai to throw or mash on this, next time I do close slash car 268, he gets counter hit and he dies. If I've conditioned Kai to try to DP every single time after I land my meaty, I'm going to throw next time, you know. He wants to meaty here, or he wants to DP. No, it's not going to happen. I'm going to throw him out of it. You have an option to cover everything as Goldlewis, which is something that not a lot of characters have access to, and you have to take advantage of it. Okay, it is essential to advancing your Goldlewis is to put conscious thought into your offense and notice what the opponent's habits are in certain spots, right? Particularly even if they're FDing, you know, that's a read. I see him FDing on wake up. Oh, okay, that's a sign to me this guy wants to block. He's being really defensive, and it means I can go for greedy and fake pressure and this kind of thing, you know? That sort of stuff isn't real, but I notice the opponent is picking a certain option, and that means that I'm going to want to cover that option. Or I notice the opponent wants to backdash here. All right, I'm going to use JD to cover it. Or I'm going to run up and I'm going to BT it. You need to be aware of all of these things, and you need to know your answers to the opponent's choices. And they're all within Goldlewis's kit. If you want to chase backdash, yeah, run up JD is a really good option. Run up BT, 6H, all of those work. They're all really good for it. If you want to call out mashes, it kind of depends on what they're mashing. Frame trap with 2K, frame trap with 2P, frame trap with close slash if you're close enough. Sometimes even just respect the opponent's TP mash. Sometimes you just hard disrespect them, pull the drone in their face, get a pressure extension that way. There's all kinds of things you can do on Goldlewis that are enabled by getting a read on the opponent, right? So make sure that you're actively trying to condition them. Or if something's working and it continues to work, keep doing it. There's no need to switch it up. So I've got full other videos on what I'm going to be showing here, but let's talk a little bit about some more advanced mix-ups than the ones I showed earlier. So first off would be the fast RC mix-ups. You definitely want to be implementing these. They are way more meter efficient than doing so just normally. And part of that is because you're left so plus here. You're left so plus. So a lot of the time you can extend pressure, and if you get like one reset, you're going to have an opportunity to generate a ton of meter left. And this is how you really overwhelm the opponent with Goldlewis, you know. So that would be one mix up. You also have this fake cross up, so where you're threatening the JH, you can air dash back in JK and jump 248 in order to confirm that as well. That's a strong mix up, and you can also set up these blue RC mix ups that I'll demonstrate here. This is going to be gapless. So what you do is you do close slash, dash cancel blue RC, 248, and then you do either 862 or 842. And the 248 from the close slash is gapless, and the 862 and 842 from the 248 is also gapless. Now on normal hit, you don't get much from 248, right? Maybe this. However, if the opponent is blue RC'd, you actually get a full combo. This is what it's going to be looking like a lot of the time. You need to be fast on this though, so keep that in mind, right? You need to be doing your close slash fast after your card cancel. That's why I kind of categorize this as an advanced mix-up. Capitalizing on it is a little hard. You basically have to card cancel there. Yeah, this is really strong. In part thanks to the fact that you can also do a gapless overhead here, and you get a fuzzy. So this is going to be gapless. So what you do is close slash BRC, 862, fuzzy overhead, or you can threaten the low, and because they're BRC'd, again, you're going to be able to get that 2K268 to work a lot of the time. You can just do 2K2D, you can do 248, or you can do what we'll talk about next in terms of advanced mix-ups, which is going to be the runnings. So, how am I doing this, right? How am I doing this? We already discussed that doing a raw 862 and a raw 842 is not feasible, and yet it looks like I am doing them raw. There's a dash in between each of them. How am I doing this? So I actually have a full video on the way this works, but it's basically a buffer trick. So you can kind of keep your buffer for a little bit after you start a Behemoth Typhoon. It's a little bit hard to explain. But basically the way this works is you throw out a move and use its end lag to do a quarter circle, up forward, or up back, depending on if you want 862 and 842. Then you go to neutral, press dash, and then press down and press H. And that will allow you to do this kind of thing. And you can even loop it into itself. You can use the end lag of any move to do this, right? Any move. And that means that you can basically insert an 842 and 862 anywhere in pressure. And that's very scary off of a 486, for example, because the opponent is very conditioned not to press after 486. You're super plus, so you just run up and get another plus 16. It's very strong. You can also do it off the PRC, and it's still gapless. Still gapless here. I want to point that out. Right, far slash 684, run 862. The opponent still can't do anything there, and a lot of the time they will try to do something there. To get this to work properly with the 842 rather is really hard, but 99% of the time the opponent respects this option anyway, and it's still important to represent, so you have your low option in your mix-up. So yeah, the runnings are also a really strong mix-up. You also have these kinds of fuzzies. Now this, it's also a fuzzy overhead, and again you can use the runnings to threaten the low option here. like that, you know. And that's going to be a little bit better than going for 2K or 248. It's much higher reward, especially on block. So that's one reason to investigate the runnings. Definitely check out my other videos on that. You also can fuzzy off a JD, that sort of thing. And if you do your fuzzy overheads properly, a lot of the time you're going to be able to slump the opponent. So you can see I got 5 hits there, and I'm just doing this completely auto-timed, right? JK, JD, close slash JH, JD, R slash. You can actually do like delays in there, time the JD so you can get one more hit at the end there, but that's a little harder. If you just completely auto-time it, it just looks like this. So this is one reason that's good, right? If the opponent has a lot of wall damage, you can actually get a wall slump there. So if any of those hits splat the opponent, they're slumped. And you can backdash and get a drone out there. And you can use the end lag of the drone to go for a running mix-up too. And it's really, really disgusting. Note that you can also set this up off of his screen basically. If you get like a raw close slash hit. That kind of thing. There's like a manual timing element to make sure that you're meeting properly, by the way, with that running. But anyway, even if you mess up, you've got the drone to cover you as long as you time that well as well. Right, so those are going to be some more advanced things for you Goldlewis players to try to implement, and they're definitely all quite practical. So keep them all in mind. We've also got the back turns. So they look like this. Basically, the way that this works is while I'm crossing up the opponent, right before I land, I am, in fact, going to start inputting an 862 or 842, and it's because they're perfectly inverted versions of each other. Again, I have a separate video on this. Check it out, but you can set this up sometimes, and if the opponent's just being very respectful, this is strong because the reward is very, very high on back turn 862. This one. The reward is very, very high on that. You can get a lot. The gun in there, and there's 189 damage just like that. Right, if the opponent respects this option off of a reset, a lot of the time you can get hella damage off of it. It's great. Yeah, look at that. 210 extra damage from it. Or you can even, use your meter to convert with gun. Yeah, this is just really good. And it's also a ton of corner carry, so like if you're close to one side of the corner, even if you go for this mix up, the extra corner carry you get kind of makes up for it. Yeah, this is actually a very strong mix up because it's a true 50-50. Because if you delay it slightly, it's just like a normal 862, and they look identical. Also, that's why I prefer back turn 862, by the way, because the reward is so high. However, if you do back turn 842 and the opponent blocks it high, oh my god, and the opponent blocks it high, and the opponent blocks it high, there we go, you get a meterless fuzzy. So I will set the opponent to crouch here. So I'll set the opponent to crouch. Still fuzzy. Also, if the opponent blocks 486 on like the last frame, you also get a meterless fuzzy. So this can happen sometimes if you're meeting with 486. It's actually pretty good to meet with if you can get the opponent scared. And you can react to this, right? And it's actually the same if you do a running 862, but this one is really hard to time properly. However, if you hit in the last couple of frames of 862, you can also go for a meterless fuzzy if you're close enough. Yeah, it's very hard to time that one though, so keep that in mind. If you're having trouble with the runnings, by the way, it's still a good mix-up to just run up and whiff 2P or 5P and go straight into 842, 862. Like Smoib sees a ton of success with this, and of course you can loop it into itself. Like Smoib is a top Goldlewis player, does way better than I do, and he doesn't do a lot of this advanced stuff and still makes it work. So take it all with a grain of salt, goons. So a couple final things I wanted to mention as well, goons. If you've made it this far and you're trying to implement the stuff that we just went over, then you're probably already aware of what I'm about to show. But we actually have a great way to bait DPs and meaty at the same time. That is a luxury. And of course, I'm talking about the infamous meaty 2P. This is actually really hard to do, and I cannot do it. I honestly can't do it. But It's possible to time 2P in such a way as to meaty and be DP safe. Oh, oops, we don't have soul set to random, do we? This is the way you test it, by the way. This is how I lab this kind of thing. So because of 2P's recovery, basically we can meaty with it. But if they DP, we will have recovered in time and we can go for a punish. Okay, that setup's not DP safe, but you get the point. Anyway, that's very, very strong. Speaking of using 2P, a lot of times on the blue RC setup I showed here, people love to YRC right here. You can bait it just by waiting a second, but another thing that you can do that's also kind of cheeky and also just not only off that, but off BRCs in general to bait YRCs, you'll 2P and the opponent will know they're not supposed to YRC on that. And then you can go for your running right after. It's not a true string, but it is kind of a mix-up, and it's easy to catch the opponent off guard there. Yeah, it's very hard to get that to string properly. But yeah, that's really, really good. If we don't have soul DPing, that's a spot where people aren't really gonna mess with you too often. So I like to do this a lot. You know, if I'm ever BRCing in, I don't know, don't DP. I'm ever BRCing in, you know, this kind of thing. I'm messing it up, but you guys get the point. And that sort of thing. It's really good. And you can even stay so close because of the running. We love runnings. Couple more mix-up I wanted to show. I think I'm just gonna like demonstrate these because explaining them is a little annoying. But yeah, let's take a look. 2K? Oh, they get knocked back into the drone. They have to hold it. And then they die. But yeah. That would be one example. I'll show it one more time. This is great. I love 2K OCGing people into the drone. And you have to be a little closer than mid-screen for that to like fully work, but people backdash there and just run into drone, but yeah. So the trick on this one is to basically make sure you're going back to neutral. Make sure you're going back to neutral when you do the fast RC drone. Otherwise, it's pretty tough. But yeah, you don't only have the throw option there, by the way. You can also do other stuff. You can go straight into like a run cancel off 5K. And if the 5K hits, they'll get picked up and then go into 862, 842. And then there's some other stuff you can do too. Now that sort of thing. Empty high. There's a lot of clown shit you can do. This is a funny setup that I've been looking at lately. Oh god, how am I going to even explain this? Basically, you put the drone down and you let the drone push them like into you, and you do like a double cross up. And it's a double safe jump as well. And you can even do a back turn here too. This is actually really hard to do properly. Like to get a back turn after JH is really hard. Like that, the timing has to be so strict. You have to hit your JH like on the last frame, basically, and then you also have to buffer very quickly your back turn BT. But basically, safe jump, and then you back turn again there on the way back. See if I can hit it. There we go. Yeah, that setup is crazy tight to actually do properly, but it's like unblockable if you do hit it. But there's only really one way to set it up so that you'll actually like be able to go for it reliably, and that's this. Yeah. You need like a close slash 2H 486 and then go for it. Note that you don't actually need to go for like the safe jump JH. You can just go straight for back turn. But if the opponent gets it standing, like sometimes the back turns won't always give you the right launch. It kind of depends on like how they're blocking it, and also depends on character. Like it doesn't even work on pot. But yeah, what else have we got? Oh, we got this too in the corner. This is a classic. Obviously, OTG drone is really good. OTG drone is really good for going for frame kill grabs. They pretty much have the tech or jump there. They can YRC now too, which is kind of sad, but you'll just grab them before they can usually. So that's good. You'll grab them out of RC startup. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, this is strong. You don't even need a car cancel, and it's still a strong mix-up a lot of the time. What I have seen Darkrai do as well, he'll summon the drone and then just kind of wait to see what you do, and then, you know, use the drone's frames to get like a 5k car 842 out or something like that. Yeah, the reason you want to be OTGing with 5k if you're going to do that though, because it doesn't leave you in grab range, and that's actually, you know, pretty strong if you can get all that stuff to work. Anyways, yeah, that's like pretty much everything I could think of. I want to say that's like everything I actually use on a regular or semi-regular basis, and I'm still trying to implement, honestly, because I think it's the future. Obviously, the RAWs are worth trying if you're on a controller that supports it, like pad or stick. And honestly, I think cross-up can do it pretty reasonably. Hitbox can probably do it. Mixbox, I just can't do it. But yeah. That's it for me, Goons. That's everything I had planned. So check out my Twitch if you want to see me streaming live. I do stream Goldlewis Gaming from time to time, unfortunately. So yeah, come say hi. Goodbye.